Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we'll be putting all of the G-Max forms into tiers to see which ones are the best, which ones are mediocre, and which ones are pretty bad. We're just using these tiers as standard, with S tier obviously being the best, D tier being the worst, but we are lucky enough that, the current rule set basically allows every single Pokemon to be used, so there's no reason to have an F. So let's just jump straight into it. So starting with Venusaur, I'm inclined to put it into the B tier, and the reason for this is that it's not amazing, but it's also not awful. Obviously, Venusaur likes to run something like Sleep Powder. It can't really use that when it G-Maxes. So it's often not like the Pokemon that you put on your team and think, okay, this is the max Pokemon. This is a Pokemon that I very often want to max. But it can obviously have matchups where it benefits from it, and its stats, they're kind of mediocre. It has like 100 base special attack, which is not amazing, but obviously with its signature max move, where you basically take 1/6 of health off of your opponent's Pokemon if they aren't grass type, obviously it begins to rack up quite a lot, so it's not awful, but it's not like the worst. It's not awful, but it's not the best either. It's kind of that's what I want to say. It's not what came out of my mouth. And also, Venusaur's kind of this thing where it has like pretty mediocre speed. Obviously, if you have Sun on the team, you can boost it, and that helps a lot, but that also means that you actually do need to have this on to really make sure that Venusaur becomes the fastest. And obviously its poison moves don't do that much damage. It can boost a special attack with them, but it's not the best. And you do have some coverage, like it gets Earth Power this generation, which is obviously pretty good. But that's basically also the only really coverage that it gets. Which is nice. It hits the steel types and it hits the fire types that it's otherwise weak to. So it's that. But it is like it's mediocre, not awful, and not great. Next up, Charizard. I think Charizard I'm going to put in the A tier, and the reason for that is, first of all, it has a better speed. Its special attack is also a little bit better, being at 109, but the big thing is the fact that you have solar power, and again, like Venusaur, it means that it does want Sun on the team to really go in and wreak havoc, but with your better speed and the damage output that you can get from solar power, obviously, and the fact that you have max flying, which can increase your speed, or be under Trick Room, or not Trick Room, Tailwind. Wow. Just gives it a bit more versatility while still obviously having the same benefit as Venusaur does, with the 1/6 damage off of your opponent's Pokemon every turn after you use the G-Max Wildfire. So it stands a little bit better alone by itself than Venusaur does, and it's a Pokemon that's more like when you put Charizard on your team, you think, oh, this is a Pokemon I want to max. Whereas with Venusaur is also, this is a Pokemon that I also kind of have as a support for the team. Blastoise is a little bit of an interesting one, because obviously you have a very nice amount of bulk, and water types are not weak to a lot of things. And since it in this generation gets Shell Smash, if you set it up, obviously suddenly the base 85 special attack and base 83 attack can suddenly do damage. But I'm going to put it in the B tier because it needs the support to set up, and without the setup, it doesn't really do the greatest damage, but it still has like the good max move, obviously, with again 1/6% of your opponent's health, as long as it's not water types. Still pretty good, and it gets slightly better coverage than Venusaur does. With obviously it gets ice moves, steel, dragon, fighting. It gets a lot of coverage, whereas Venusaur doesn't really. So I think it's a little more gimmicky too, but I actually think it could be fun, and it could be pretty solid if you like build a team around it instead. Next up is Butterfree, and Butterfree I think I put it in C tier because it kind of has the same problem as Venusaur, except actually even more so. That Butterfree is mostly just a support Pokemon. You have it to have very accurate sleep powders, you have it to Tailwind, you have it to Rage Powder to obviously draw moves over to you. So maxing it, you basically almost never want to max it. And for its max move, obviously it can either be very, very good and you put both of your opponent's Pokemon to sleep when you use it, or you poison them, which really isn't that great. So it just kind of sits there and does nothing in that case. Also, it's not really that offensive. Like the base 90 or something special attack and the base 70 speed doesn't really do well when you're maxed. And obviously, like, the most common items on it otherwise, like Focus Sash, which you'll obviously still have if you max. Also Charge Scarf, and you lose that, so it kind of becomes a little bit, You don't have Butterfree in your team because you think, I want to use G-Max Butterfree. You have it because you think, hey, Butterfree, it offers me a lot of good support for my team. So, yeah, C tier for Butterfree. Pikachu I'm going to throw, actually in C tier 2. T tier is kind of like the tier where like if you want to use them, you can definitely make them work. And Pikachu is kind of like that because it has like a base 90 speed, which in this metagame it's not the best, but it's also not awful. And it can hold a light ball, and suddenly it can actually do a lot of damage. And the fact that it's dedicated max move paralyzes both of your opponent's Pokemon, even if they're ground type, could be pretty clutch. But again, it's a very niche pick. You don't like have your 5 Pokemon on team and you scroll through and you think, hey, Pikachu, that's a great Pokemon, I want to G-Max it. That's not really what why it's there. So it's a little bit more nitpicky. Like if there was something between C and D, I would probably put Pikachu there. But yeah, it gets to stay in it. But obviously it gets some pretty solid coverage. Like it gets water moves, it gets grass moves, fire moves too, not fire, fighting. So it has options, and obviously it can also fake out, so it can also be a little bit of a support for the team before it maxes. So, you know, it's not awful. Speaking of not awful, Meowth is pretty awful. Its dedicated max move does nothing in competitive play, and Meowth just has bad stats in general, so I don't really feel like there's much more to add to this one. So I think we just go on to Machamp, which I am going to put in the C tier. And I'm putting it in the C tier because its max move makes it crit, which obviously does a lot of damage, but it also has this... Machamp is a little bit annoying in this regard, and there'll also be other Pokemon that are, that obviously it has a really good attack. It has like okay bulk, not the best, not the worst, but not really there. Its speed, however, base 55. It's too fast for Trick Room, it's too slow outside of Trick Room. So again, it's like a Pokemon where you look at it and think, I really want to use Machamp, so let me build a team around Machamp. But the thing is, you don't get... Because your max move is a fighting move that makes you crit more, you also don't really boost your attack, but you kind of do because you have the crits, but like, you don't really benefit from using it multiple times in a row like you would with the regular fighting max move. But obviously, it's... Again, it's one of those Pokemon that has good coverage. It's just its speed. It's really holding it back, and its G-Max move is kind of... It's not booty, but it's not amazing either. Gengar is a little bit of a weird one, and I'm actually very much in doubt of where to put it. Because if you look like in earlier generations, like Gengar has actually been able to put in work, both as a mega and like sub-disable annoying Will-O-Wisp stuff. But this generation, it really hasn't been able to, and I guess Dragapult being such a threat kind of prevents it. And I guess I'm going to put it in C tier because it's kind of like you don't look at Gengar and think, hey, Gengar is great for my team. You think, hey, I want to build a team around Gengar. And obviously it can be good. It's max move, it prevents your opponents from swapping out, so it basically becomes Mega Gengar, except it doesn't become Mega Gengar. It doesn't get speeding if it became a Mega Gengar. But no, it doesn't. And the support stats you can't really use because only you're offensive, and while Gengar does get nice coverage, like it gets grass moves, electric moves, fairy moves, fighting moves, it gets Focus Blast too. So it can get pretty nice coverage, but it's just a little bit underwhelming in this meta game, I guess, and there's just always seems to be better options than Gengar. So moving on, next up is Kingler. And this one, I'm torn between, because Kingler has a very good attack. And it has the ability to sheer fall, so if you throw on a life orb, it can do a buttload of damage. But it has a base 75 speed, and it can set it up with agility, but it's not really... Then you basically need a turn to allow it to set it up, so you need something with Follow Me, you throw it together with a Butterfree or something, and you do it. But then you can only kill one thing anyway afterwards, so you're leaving yourself also a little bit vulnerable by doing it. And I don't think when you max that you really get the sheer force benefit, since you don't really have a secondary effect on your moves. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something like that. And this max move, it doesn't set rain, so it doesn't make your water move stronger, it just lowers your opponent's speed, which can be good if you're facing a fast team, but if they have Tailwind, they'll still be faster than you. And if they have Trick Room, well, you just made the Trick Room even better, or if you have Trick Room and they don't, then suddenly you make them better under your speed conditions. So it's kind of underwhelming, especially in the grand machine of the water types that we do have in the metagame. So I'm going to put it in a D tier. It might be some more C tier. It's something between a C and a D, I guess. It's like a D plus, I guess. Next up is Lapras. I'm not biased at all. I am going to throw Lapras right up in the S tier. Obviously not the craziest special attack, but if you throw like something like a life orb on it, it's pretty good. If you throw on a weakness policy and it gets propped, you also hit very hard. Or if you have it with a support Pokemon that either is something like an alchemy that can, use decorate, or if you have Helping Hand or whatnot, you still do sizable damage. But the big wonder of Lapras is, first of all, it's bulky. It gets a little bit of coverage, it's not the craziest, but you know, it's quite alright. But just the max move, the fact that you set up Veils, is just so good. And you can have a likelihood to do it even more. And it's just, I love G-Max Lapras, and I'm glad that Lapras has finally gotten its time to shine. Next up, speaking of someone who has a time to shine, it's not Eevee. Eevee's unfortunately pretty bad. The reason for this is obviously it has bad stats. Let's face it, like adaptability is actually pretty cool. You can find Evil Light on it, and you know, it actually becomes okay bulky. But your max move is also like Attract, which is great if you're facing Pokemon of the opposite gender. But if they're the same gender or genderless, it's basically, you know, it just sucks. it's basically useless. That's the word I wanted. Useless. So it's kind of just. No. You use Eevee if you want to use Eevee. You don't use Eevee because you think Eevee is good at the end of the day. Next up is Snorlax. I'm going to put Snorlax in A tier. And I think it's because Snorlax is always a pretty solid Pokemon in and of itself. Like on the Trick Room, sitting on Belly Drum, obviously pretty damn great. A good thing that they reduced the 50% barriers, because otherwise I think this thing would have been a lot stronger. Especially, you know, it is what it is. But if you set up a Belly Drum and you get Trick Room up, then Snorlax can kind of sweep by itself, and since its max move restores its berry, you can kind of, you know, help keep your Snorlax alive a little bit. Especially since if you're on the Trick Room, you don't want to actually lower your opponent's speed, so having like a stab max move that does not do that is even more of a benefit. And Snorlax obviously gets a pretty nice amount of coverage. Like, it gets Steel moves, Fire moves, Ground moves, Dark moves. I don't know if I said Dark moves, fire moves. It gets all the punching moves, I think. It gets so much coverage that you can basically make it fit anything that you want. And if you don't want to run Belly Drum, you can also run Curse. And since they reduced the 50% barriers to 33%, you can even run like Fig Fat and Citrus Berry instead, because you don't really lose a lot of health. You lose like 8% every time, which is not, you know, nothing crazy, but it makes you bulky against things like Charizard. Suddenly you wall these two pretty damn well, and they don't enjoy you. Next up is Garbodor, and Garbodor in of itself is not a particularly great Pokemon. Its max form doesn't really make it any better, so D tier. Its max move basically just poisons both of your opponents, and mind you, for Garbodor it's better than the regular max move that boosts your special attack, because Garbodor is a physical attacker, so you can say in that regard it's pretty good. It also gets alright coverage, but its stats overall is just not the best, and it's just a little underwhelming. Its defenses are okay, but not amazing, and it just falls a little flat. It's basically just, it's garbage, literal garbage. So ignoring Metal, because Metal is not here, we go to Rillaboom. And Rillaboom in general is just a very, very good Pokemon in competitive, because Grassy Glide is busted. The max form, more often than not, you won't max your Rillaboom. But if you do, like, it's not the worst. So I'll put it in A tier. Is it a B tier? I'm kind of torn. Like it's like a B+ or an A-. We'll put it in A tier though. And the reason for this is that obviously the nice thing is you don't need Grassy Terrain anymore. It's your ability, so having that as a max move is great that you don't. Instead you have 160 base per move. I said base too many times, I absolutely butchered it. You have a base 160 move instead, always. And you also have your Grassy Terrain. And you have a pretty damn good attack, so you actually do a buttload of damage to basically everything. And it gets okay coverage. Like, you get flying coverage, you get ground coverage, you get fighting coverage, you get what's it called? I was about to say butterfly coverage, that's not it. Bug coverage, close enough. It gets a lot of coverage, and with the attack that it has, that's pretty nice. And since you can run Max Quake, you can also boost your little subpar special defense. So it can do a lot of work if you wanted to do work, but more often than not, it's pretty good by itself without it. But the nice thing is, when you're done with your max turns and you have obviously gotten your Rillaboom alive through it, you obviously still, in most cases, will have Grassy Terrain up, and you can fire off some very strong Grassy Glides afterwards, after you weaken the whole team and basically win from there. So I think it's okay to put an A tier, even though I would call it an A-. Next up is Cinderace, and I am going to put it right up here, because Cinderace is basically taking the game by storm, and basically being able to get stab on every single move that you use on a Pokemon that gets pretty damn good coverage between you have your very strong fire move that doesn't set the sun, but you don't really need it to set the sun, and depending on what else you have on your team, you might not even want to. Personally, I used it together with Purina, so I did not want to set the sun, so it was great. You get steel moves, you get fighting moves, you can also boost your attack suddenly. You get Sucker Punch, so even when you're outside of Dynamax, you can kind of hit hard, otherwise you still have it as a dark move. And you get Bounce, so suddenly you get Sea Flying, so you can boost the speed on your own side of the field, which is pretty good. It has so many moves that it can run that it's hard to swap into it. It's kind of what I'm saying. You basically need to intimidate it, and intimidate it, and intimidate it, and intimidate it again to really be able to take hits from it, especially with the coverage that it gets. So I think we put an S tier. It deserves to be an S tier, so let's jump to Inteleon. Inteleon, it's kind of the one that falls the most flat between the Gen A starters, and I'm going to put it in B tier. And the reason for that is that you can... It took a hit. It's like they always have one starter where the hidden ability just never really shines compared to the others, and Inteleon got that. Because it got Sniper, and you can set it up, because obviously it gets focus energy, so you can get up pretty high with your crit chance, so you can set it up. You can have Scope Lens, and then Snipe Shot has a high crit rate, so you can basically always crit it, and you get a very strong water move, and you also get Max Airstream, and you get Ice, you also get some other coverage, I'm forgetting Dark, Ghost, whatever. So it's a Pokemon that if you want to make it work, it's kind of like Blastoise in that regard, except you have a much higher base speed, so you can actually, destroy the Cinderaces before they destroy you. If you support it and get it set up, it can do a lot of work, but it needs to support, and you put it as a max form on your team because you want to use it, not because you suddenly look at your team and think, Inteleon would actually be pretty good, man. That's mostly just for colossal teams, with Aqua Jet. But yeah, it's a Pokemon you can make it work. You can make it work. Next up is G-Max Corviknight. And this one, I love the design, I really do. I absolutely love G-Max Corviknight's design. But the fact is, oh, whoops, I clicked the wrong one. Its Dynamax form is just better than its G-Max form, simply just because you can boost your speed instead of removing screens. And removing screens is a little bit nitpicky, because obviously it's pretty nice against Lapras teams, but what if you're not facing a Lapras team? Then it's kind of moot point. You'd probably rather boost your speed. So I'm going to put it in C tier, because Corviknight itself is not a bad Pokemon, but it's a C minus basically, because it still has nice support. It can Tailwind. It can what does Corviknight do more than that? It can also bulk up, and it can taunt, and it can click Brave Bird. Being a Steel type Pokemon, so it's just Corviknight itself is not a bad Pokemon. Its Dynamax form is just generally better than its Gigantamax form. Next up is Orbeetle, and I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed, let's say it like that. I'm going to put it in D tier, and the reason is its max moves, makes gravity, I guess. There's no gravity in Pokemon's universe otherwise. It says gravity, and that basically means that if you have Hypnosis or Sleep Powders or whatever not, you can hit more accurate. But you have it on a Pokemon that doesn't really have the greatest special attack already, and you give up getting up Psychic Terrain for getting up Gravity, which to me does not generally, unless you're really building a team around and thinking, hey, I want to use Gigantamax Orbeetle, it's not a good trade-off. And other than that, it also doesn't really get the best coverage, because other than the stabs, it basically only gets Grass and Ghost, I think. So it just becomes a little underwhelming. Like, you could also do something else to set up Coal Mines and then, do some damage, because it has like okay special bulk at least, I believe. Never mind that, both bulks, it's just your HP that's bad. But there's that. It can also be something you can use to set up Trick Room, but you have base 9 speed, so I guess you don't really want to set up Trick Room with it unless you have, your Sweeper next to it and you use this thing as kind of support. But then you would probably rather max the other Pokemon, so it would become a support Pokemon more. So it's just the G-Max form down in D tier. Dreadnought, I'm torn with, because part of me wants to put it in C tier, but something in me also realizes that Rock and Water Stab is pretty strong actually, like when you think about it. Its move also sets up Stealth Rocks, which is not in theory very recognized in VGC, and generally with good reason. But at the same time, if you go up and you look at Lapras and Cinderace and Charizard and Butterfree, that's just some of them. That was basically, I mentioned 3 of the best Gigantamax forms. You chunk them for a good lot of health. And the thing is, it obviously needs rain. Swift Swim, quite nice. It can be quite fast. So on a rain team, it could do pretty well. And the nice thing about setting up rocks instead of the regular rock move is that you're not disrupting your own weather. So it's actually, the more I think about it, the more it's probably better than the Dynamax one. It's just kind of, I think I'll put it in B tier because if you want to build a team around it, like kind of like the rest of them, if you build your team around it to support the Pokemon, it can definitely do quite well, I believe. But you also need to dedicate your team to it. You're never just going to look and say, oh, no, that looks solid in general. Let me put that on my team. It's something that you build around because you want to use it. The same kind of goes for Colossal. I'm going to put Colossal in B tier. I actually think it's a little better. This is another A- case. Maybe it should be an A-. Or maybe it should be an A tier. Does it deserve an A tier? I mean, it has won an IC. I'm going to put it in A tier. I'm torn. It really should be in both, I guess. Can I copy it? No, just kidding. We'll just put an A tier. No, I'll put it in B tier. I'll put it in B tier, and the primary reason for that is, again, kind of like the others here, that they need support to work. But I think the Colossal is one of those that it's probably the best one in B tier, to say it, because it has Steam Engine as its ability. So you drastically raise your speed, I believe, if you're hit by a water or fire move. And if you give that thing a weakness policy, and again have it with something like Inteleon or Surf Dragon Ball or whatnot, you both raise your speed with the Pokemon that's pretty fast or has priority, and you get your weakness policy boost, and you can basically chunk something for a good load of the health when you're +2. Like, obviously your base, both attack and special attack, are only 80, and that's not the greatest, but again, that's the same for Lapras. Like, when you get a weakness policy off and you get a max move that's like 120, 30, 40 base power, it doesn't really matter that when you're +2, it doesn't really matter that your special attack or attack is not better. And obviously it has like kind of the same with Charizard, that you chunk your opponent for a good amount of health every turn, which, you know, that's actually, in a looking at like long game, that's, you know, pretty good. And you get your solid fire move that can set the sun for you. You have the rock move that chips their health every turn, and you can also get like grass moves, steel moves, ground moves. It even gets max Geyser, which I don't really know why it does, but it does, so you can run that. So like, it becomes like a pretty solid Pokemon. Next up is apparently both Flabble and Appleton, because I only put one of them in, which is a little bit of a bummer, because I would not put them in the same. Appleton, I would probably put in D tier, and that's mostly because it's not because it's significantly worse than Flabble. The primary thing is just that its max move heals your status conditions, which, I mean, in some cases can be useful, but it's not the best you could get for max move, is kind of what I'm just trying to say. That's definitely better, and you might rather just want to set the grassy terrain for yourself rather than that. For Flabble, it's kind of a little different. It gets Dragon Dance, and it gets Hustle, and if you put on a life off of that, and you get like to +1, you're also making up for its pretty bad speed. It can actually hit pretty hard, so it's one of those, again, like kind of like all the rest here, where if you support them, they need more support than these guys, but if you support them right, it can actually put in a lot of work. And the nice little gimmick for Flabble is that its max move, it reduces your opponent's evasiveness. So I guess that will make up for the Hustle when you're done maxing, so you can kind of, you know, also hit your hits afterwards, which is pretty great. That's something that Durant struggles with. Personally, Flabble can kind of get around that, but still not worth more than C tier. Sandaconda is a little bit of a weird one, and I don't really know how I feel about it, because it traps your opponent in against you, which, you know, can obviously be useful. And I also do believe it does a little bit of damage each turn, kind of like, is it Sand Tomb? I think it's kind of like Sand Tomb that it does to both the opponents, which, you know, is pretty nice. But Sandaconda itself is just not that impressive of a Pokemon. Obviously, you can run it with Coil, and it actually doesn't have like a bad attack. It's like 107 base attack, but its speed is 71. And right now, I just feel like the metagame is quite tough for those like middle speed tier Pokemon, that they need more support, or they need to be like Lapras and have like a super good max move. And Sandaconda's is just, it's an alright move. It's not really a great move. And since we have Intimidate running around even more now, because both Cinderace and Rillaboom, Raisling, Incineroar's, what's it called, usage, and you also have Token Kisses and such, it's just, it falls a little flat, but it's definitely, it's not. I have actually faced one. I think it was back in it was called the Champions Cup, the one hosted by Adrian and Wolfie. Link to the battle, because I did record it down below, but it can be annoying to deal with. I will give it. It can be very annoying to deal with, but it's just, it doesn't really shine out as the best, and you never just like scroll through and think, I need a ground type. Let me put Sandaconda on the team. It doesn't happen. getting to join Sandaconda is Toxtricity. And that's because Toxtricity in and of itself, you know, is a pretty solid Pokemon. With its 114 base special attack, you know, it hits pretty hard. But the downfall is, first of all, base 75. A lot of these Pokemon have that downfall. It's like right in the middle of the speed tier, so it's either too slow or it's too fast. It'll never be good enough. And yes, it can set off its speed, but it's kind of, you know, and it doesn't really get the greatest coverage. Like, yeah, you have Boom Burst, and you also have like your electric move, so you can give it like First Spring, get to +1, and then obviously you hit very hard. But your max move will either poison or paralyze your opponent's Pokemon. But you never know which one. And again, as I mentioned with Butterfree, poisoning your opponent's Pokemon is not really the greatest. It's not really what you want. You do for the paralysis, and that's like a 50% chance to get it, so it's not really reliable. And you're basically taking that chance rather than get up electric terrain and just boosting your damage a lot more. So it's kind of, as I said, with basically everything down here, you use it because you want to use it, not because it's the greatest to use. Sandyscorch is basically the same story as Sandaconda, with the Seamoo, where did that come from? With this I can't speak. With its max move basically being like Fire Spin, and having that middle speed tier and just having a pretty good attack, but not the best, it's kind of, just becomes a little bit underwhelming. Speaking of underwhelming, Hatterene isn't. I'm going to put an A tier. It could kind of like, be one of these. No, it has to be together with Charizard, I think. You could argue that Charizard and Hatterene should be up there, and Colossal should be up here, but you know, it's very preference-wise. But Hatterene and Didi has been a combo like right from when the generation came out, and it still is. And G-Max Hatterene has actually only made it better, because before, you would override your own psychic terrain whenever you went for max fairy move. Now you don't. Instead, you get to be bloody annoying to your opponent and confuse them, and basically give them a 1 in 3 chance of hitting themselves in the face and not be able to do anything for that turn. When you have 2 Pokemon on the field that are confused, you know, the chance of one of them hitting themselves is pretty good. And again, you don't override your terrain, and that just makes Hatterene so much better, and it also does get a little bit of different coverage. With the most north, where the basic just being fire and grass, but just having the fire move just makes steel types so much worse against you. So something like an Excadrill doesn't want to take a max flare from a Hatterene that has a base 136 attack that you probably invested in and made it like quite nature, and then, you know, maybe even gave a life orb, just absolutely destroying them. And the nice thing is that Hatterene is also one of the absolute source Pokemon that we have on the Trick Room, so it basically, like, barring something like Torkoal, you're going to underspeed most things, which is pretty great for it. Next up is Grimmsnarl, and I honestly don't know where to place it, because Grimmsnarl has a good attack stat. It has, and you know, it hits very hard, and it has some pretty good moves. It can have Sucker Punch too to be offensive. I also think it gets some decent coverage options. But when you use Grimmsnarl, you're mostly using it for Prankster, so you have something either like Fake Out, or you have both screens, or you have like Thunder Wave, and then you maybe have like 1 or 2 attacking moves next to it. You're never really using it because you want to max it. You're using it because you want it to support your team. It just makes it a little less reliable as a G-Max. And the thing is, its max move basically uses Yawn, and that in theory is pretty good because you're very much disrupting your opponent with it. But again, you almost never want to do it. But if you really want to, if you think, hey, I need an offensive dark and fairy type, Grimmsnarl is not the worst option, so I'll put it in B tier because I think it can do alright. It's again one of those Pokemon where like speed tier is neither really the best for Tailwind. You probably would want it in Tailwind, honestly, or it's too fast for Trick Room, but I could actually see it be decent. Not great, but decent. Alchemy kind of has the same, where Alchemy is a support Pokemon. It's not really something that you want to max. It's max move, obviously, it heals both Pokemon on your side's HP by, I don't know how much, 50% maybe? Something like that, which is nice if you're like in a very niche situation where you kind of need it, but it's not really reliable. It's not really why you put Alchemy on the team. So I'm going to put it down in the C tier just because of that, because normally like you'll have Decorate because you want to boost one of your Pokemon stats, and you'll have something like Helping Hand, Protect, maybe like something like Dazzling Gleam to hit your opponents. You won't really max it. You put it together, like basically you put Hatterene, Alchemy next to the thing you want to max, not the other way around. Next up is Copperajah, and this is one where it's actually, Copperajah is a decent Trick Room sweeper, I believe, because it has a pretty low base speed, it has quite a good attack, and it gets a lot of coverage, and it also has the benefit, kind of like Kingler, that it has Sheer Force Life Orb, but because you're not on that middle speed tier and you have pretty damn good coverage, it makes it a little better than Kingler. But I think the big drawback for G-Max Copperajah is the fact that its max move, like its dedicated G-Max move, sets up Steel Stealth Rocks instead of boosting your defense, which is really not that good. You would always rather boost your defense and set up those, because it's not really, obviously, yeah, it takes damage on Hatterene and Grimmsnarl and such, but boosting your defense overall is just better. So I'm going to put in C tier. Had it been like Dynamax, right, I'd probably put it in B tier, but since it's not, you know, C tier it is. Next up is Duraludon, and this one I don't really know. Like, its dedicated max move is a dragon type move that lowers your opponent's PP of the last move they used, which, you know, it's not bad, but normally it lowers your opponent's attack, so it kind of, to me, it doesn't really make it that much greater or worse. Like, removing PP is great if you're facing special attackers, not that great if you're facing physical attackers and you rather lower the attack. So it kind of just puts it back to where is Duraludon in of itself? I think in general, the attack decrease is nicer, and because of that, I'm going to put it into B tier, because the Dynamax one just seems a little more reliable, but it's not because the Gigantamax one is bad, and Duraludon in and of itself, well, has definitely lost some value. Let's just face it, it has. It's nowhere near its prime as it was back in the start of the generation. It's still a pretty decent Pokemon. Next up is the Urshifu forms, and I'll admit I haven't used them, but Urshifu in and of itself has very good HP, very good attack, very good defense, booty special attack, which is fine, not the greatest special defense, which you can make up for it with Assault Vest if you want to or whatnot, or you can max Quake, so you can also make up for it like that. And its speed is kind of where that's where it doesn't make it an S tier for me, because it holds itself under base 100. It's like 97-ish speed, which is not good because it outspeeds a lot of things. Like, why does it outspeed Indeedee? Couldn't they have made like 94 or something? But no. And the max moves are obviously quite good. They ignore max guard, so they can hit anything whenever it wants. I don't know if one form is really better than the other, obviously. The fighting one always crits. The water one, like, the fighting one's one big hit that always crits, while the other one's like small hits that crits. Overall, like, the fighting one does get better, but the water one also gets Aqua Jet for priority, which is also quite nice. But at the same time, the dark one also gets Sucker Punch, so I don't know. I think I'll just put them both in A tier, because the speed falls a little bit flat, but Urshifu still has some really great stats overall that just makes them, it does make them a threat overall. It's not the greatest to face. So that is my list of the G-Max forms in Sword and Shield currently available. Let me know what is your favorite G-Max form and where do you disagree with my list, because there definitely is some. You will always be a little bit biased, so it's always fine. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Keep cool. Bye.